Hey there! Thanks for tuning in to Nicole and I's presentation. We will be providing you all you need to know about the social change in the Northern Renaissance. Here we go! To start things off, education and political thought were changed because of Renaissance ideas. Also, new inventions were created and there were social changes regarding women and slaves.
Education and political thoughts began to change. When humanists focused on education and moral behavior and wrote works on it, members of society read their works and became inspired by them.
One of those important writers was Peter Paul Virgilio, who wrote Hubertus, the ruler of Cara, which talks about the instruction of young men in life. Another very influential writer, Baldassare Castiglione, wrote The Courtier, about training young men to being idealistic, perfect man. Castiglione believed that educated men of upper classes should know many academic subjects, such as dance, music, arts, trained spiritual, physical, and intellectual capabilities. His book was widely spread and caused men to strive to be the ideal man.
Don't forget about the most important, Niccolo Machiavelli and his book, The Prince.
I could never forget about that one. He's a classic. The Prince is about political power and how a ruler should gain, maintain, and increase it. Machiavelli believed that a government could be considered good if it was effective and the ruler increased its power.
The printed word was also a big social change during this era. Once paper money and playing cards from China reached Europe, European investors Johann Gutenberg, Johann Fust, and Peter Schoeffer created the movable type. This was a big improvement from the Chinese wooden block system that was long and expensive because with movable type, individual letters could be moved to form words, so it was much faster and more varieties of text could be made. Society began to feel the effects of having movable type in the 15th century. Acquiring paper was easy and inexpensive, and there was many changes in society. Those changes included propaganda being made possible, an invisible public was reached, and the literacy of lay people was stimulated, and new forms of writing, like pamphlets and manuals, were created.
The next big advancement in society was the invention of clocks. The first clocks were invented by the Arabs around 700 AD, which was a sundial. Then in China, Pope Sylvester II built the first mechanical clock in the West. People who lived in the countryside only needed approximate times like dawn, noon, and sunset for their work. The people in the city needed more precise time and measurement. The mechanical clock allowed Europeans to divide time in equal hours so the workday could be fixed in both the winter and the summer.
Hey Caroline, what does a clock do when it is hungry?
What?
It goes back for seconds!
That's a good one, Nicole. Anyways, moving on. As the Renaissance progressed, we noticed that modern culture values identified women with marriage and the domestic activities of the home.
That is true. Many women who worked outside of the house worked in shipbuilding, textiles, agriculture, or as midwives and servants.
The status of upper-class women greatly declined during the Renaissance, which became very visible due to their type of work, access to property and political power, and role in shaping the outlook of their society.
Leon Battista Alberti, the author of On the Family, discusses morality and states that wife's role should be restricted to orderliness of the household, food, serving the meals, education of children, and supervising servants. The Renaissance did not include women in the improvement of education. They were expected to only run the household, and some women were taught to read Greek, Latin, and speak 2 modern languages.
Did you know that the Renaissance also witnessed a downshift in women's status due to culture and sexuality?
A double standard was applied, as sex for women was restricted to marriage, but men could have sex outside of the marriage. The rape of women by upper-class men was also common and not a serious offense.
That's right. Sex crimes were punished, but women were victims in fewer cases than earlier. Homosexual practice was also common based on relationships between boys and men.
There were several anti-sodomy laws in the 15th century. Homosexuality was widespread, difficult to outlaw, and helped shape masculine gender identity.
But what does sodomy mean?
Sodomy means all sexual acts between persons of the same sex.
Interesting. On another note, Central and Eastern Europe political situation was very unstable during this time period.
Central and Eastern Europe permitted the enslavement of pagans, which allowed strong lords to cheaply satisfy the needs of their state and offer merchants a commodity for the profitable exchange with foreigners.
The word slave always carried a definite connotation of an unfree person of Slavic background, and the enslavement of Slavic people in Eastern Europe was definitely common.
Wow, I heard that Germans and others enslaved or sold to Polish/Bohemian Italians brought many white slaves to Europe by the Mediterranean, and in the 15th century, blacks were being brought to Europe in very large numbers. An interesting fact to know is that Africans consisted of several different ethnic groups, meaning that the country is biracial.
Blacks filled several positions such as laborers, dancers, actors, or musicians. European attitude towards blacks was ambivalent, and many believed that blackness was evil, sin, or the devil. But it was very common because slavery displayed several signs of wealth.
Thanks for tuning in to our presentation.